Hello and welcome to the Stars with Mary Edwards. I'm here with special guest and new friend, Robert Perala. Nice to see you here today with me.
Mary, you're really beautiful. Thank you so much for all the wonderful things that you do for us.
Well, back at you, and I'm delighted to have you here today. And I love that we are fellow Californians, not very close by, and got to spend some time together over the last couple of events here in the Bay Area, which I really enjoyed. So after a brief bio here on Robert, we will continue on with, he will delight you with some of his incredible stories in his book and any adventures he'd like to include today. So Robert is an internationally acclaimed author of The Divine Blueprint, Roadmap for the New Millennium, and The Divine Architect.
Shameless plug.
Yes, I love it, double whammy. The Art of Living and Beyond. His lectures and publications include 25 years of research in metaphysics, spirituality, behavioral science, personal growth, the origin of the soul, earth-based anomalies, extraterrestrial science, and near-death experience research. He's also a humanitarian. His humanitarian relief efforts as Director of Development for the United Nations Association led him to being awarded the prestigious Certificate of Congressional Recognition at Stanford University in 2007 for his support of programs with Adopt a Minefield and UNICEF. He is a graduate of the Robbins Research Institute, led by America's foremost results coach, Tony Robbins. Robert is a sought-after radio and television personality and has been featured on CNN, the A&E channel, Fox Network, and many radio programs, including Coast to Coast AM. He is also, as a Renaissance man, he is an event production, singer-songwriter, and does entertainment. He has produced and performed on almost every kind of show, including lectures, workshops, expos, conferences, music, and film productions. He recently filmed and recorded Whatever Happened to the American Dream for the motion picture documentary soundtrack, Just Sign Here, which depicted the fall of the international banking community and the collapse of the housing and mortgage market. Robert has been a musician all his life, playing piano, rhythm and bass guitar, and formed the bands The Brightest Fire and the Kissing Bandits. Great names.
That was a while ago.
I know, but it sounds wonderful.
That sounds like my whole history.
It's great. I love it.
Must be in their past life.
So he is currently writing the screenplay, The Divine Blueprint, the motion picture with renowned writer Mary Jo Stratsky. So welcome aboard. Thank you for being here. Beautiful to have you here. I've really enjoyed getting to know you a lot more recently. So I don't know where you'd like to start. You could start with your ET contact or wherever you'd like to start.
Truthfully, all of us have contact, and that is kind of startling because a lot of people in the media will say, is there extraterrestrial life out there? Do you think so? Then they'll get the microphone, right? And they'll interview the particular person they're talking, do you believe? And they'll say something like, yes, I believe. I saw something 8 years ago. And you know the rest of the story.
Right.
How is it possible my opinion could be so widely, conceptually almost so different? When I was a boy, I got the idea that there were other visitors all around us because I was able to see them when I was young. When I was very young, I was able to see apparitions. These are semi-full torso apparitions, semi-etheric. You can kind of see through them. Historically, people would call them ghosts or departed loved ones or what have you. And I was able to see that when I was very young. So when I was in kindergarten and first grade and things like that, the teachers would write notes home to my parents. Well, Robert says he sees people standing behind the teacher, and this disturbs the class. And it did. I said, you must have seen them. And they, no, I don't believe we've ever seen them. I said, you must have seen them. No, I don't believe that there's anything there. Well, I got that. I had that understanding pretty succinct because it happened repeatedly. and at nighttime as well. It's not like they talk to me always directly. In fact, rarely do they address me directly. In fact, some of them I think couldn't see me and walked right past. But for some reason, while most of us grow up and our clairvoyant sight naturally kinds of dissipate as we become accustomed to the material world, and you begin to identify with material things by name, and these are my parents, and this is my environment, and this is my house, and everything. Eventually you go through that, but that's that second sight that when you can see when you're very young, as a 2-3-year-old or whatever, that begins to go away. And then eventually, you don't even remember that it even happened, that you saw all that, or you may even deny it or dismiss it. But for some reason, it continued with me well into probably up until I was about 11 years old. And I would see these things. So I was raised in a household where my mother was very open to all that. So, of course, being somebody that a child who says all these fantastic happenings are going on around us, they would hold meetings at the house with these ladies that came to the house, and they would try everything from levitation, meditation, sort of trying to concentrate their thoughts to poke a hole in the divine intelligence itself, or what have you. And they used to have a reputation around us that said if the furniture was, they were trying levitation, right? They said if the furniture was moving by itself, you were probably at the Perala's house. That's kind of the way it was going, It was that idea, understanding stayed with me my whole entire life up until now, the year 2023. And I don't see them at all like I used to. I'm not that kind of clairvoyant. We're all clairvoyant to a degree, but I don't carry that sight. Although today I lucid dream, and I can sometimes be in that dream and be testing everything. This is a real pen. Okay, this says my name on it. I can't be dreaming, only to be startled by the change in location, which is now my bedroom in the morning in this year, and going, how in the world do they do that? And that's the malleable reality of what we actually all live in. A lot of people will deny what I just told you, but that's okay. People will also raise their hand at the lectures and the workshops and go, I have to tell you something. And out of that comes a confession about something they saw. They have an ally. Yes, he sees it. Well, I've been seeing it. Well, we have to talk.
I do.
Good.
Well, and it's, people just want to share, and we all like to share our stories. I saw my grandmother as a 20-foot angel when she passed. I saw her maid that was my best friend as a little girl. I was up on a craft at age 5 and 6 with my dad. And, I was off planet a couple of weeks ago. So I think it does morph. Things change over time. And as life goes on and we continue to develop other gifts and have other stories and see other things in our dreams and however we see them. So your mother had it. Did anybody else following back? Did you ever go back further? So was it any of your grandparents, or mostly your mom?
Mostly my mom, and it scared the heck out of my dad, And my sister would go, why can't you, what is it all about, Robert? Really, first it was extraterrestrials, and then it was trying to raise the dead. You're scaring the family. Why don't you just be normal? I said, well, what is that? Some people, it says even in the Bible, the Gita, these different sacred texts, ask and you will receive. And what I found is you have to, it's not necessarily you ask once, okay, wait for it, and then in confirmation, and then you can be a believer. It's kind of a long practice over a long period of time of continually asking, what do you really want to do the next day and the day and the day after? What is it that you want? And I said, I want to merge that material and non-material plane a little bit. I would like to know and have a bridge a, a bridge to that and don't want to lose that. And because I think it's very important, because if you're going to be of service on this planet, you should be able to link those two somewhat together. And that can be done by faith. I pray every day. I pray to Christ. I pray to my family who's all on the other side. Most of us have lived long enough where a lot of our friends and our family are all on the other side. And speaking of the other side, what's important to note about that is that they live in the continual moment. They're in this continual moment that is the reality of the reality. That's actually where most souls live a lot of their existence. And we come as an adjunct into the material world, as an adjunct to our studies. We come here by an agreement that we make with those members of family and other celestial members, angelics, and then we will come here and be born here, and then experience an aging process, a day, a night, a month, a year, and we'll experience that. So, and then the time is up, and then we have to go back. And when we go back, it's like waking up from a dream, and we realize, oh, I see. Oh, I see. This is actually where I live. When they say you go to your rest, well, that's true, because you don't have the material pain in your body the way you did in the material world. And you also are living in the perpetual moment of eternity, I believe, and you exist there. And so, most souls that transfer over, say like in a near-death experience, they see the other side, like I did in 1997. And most souls don't want to come back. They're like, oh, no, wait a minute. I really like this instead. I know everybody here. I understand this now, and I'm out of my pain. And I'm out of the being at the mercy of the elements, sort of, that you have here. And then they usually will tell you, well, you have to go back because you have much learning to do and serving to do, because that part of that service is to learn how to serve others. And sometimes it's just as simple as you're here to help. You're here to help the other souls in what you might know, and that's becoming conscious awake to help them. So really, at the end of all this, well, I want to solve the whole world's problems and all these grand things that we'd like to do. Sometimes it's just down to the most basic thing of you're just sent here just a simple random acts of kindness daily, of helping the other person, because we're actually a set of dysfunctional souls that are here by agreement to learn lessons in mastery, relationship mastery, physical mastery, emotional mastery.
Right. Well, I knew at a young age, first when I knew in the womb that I was not really, I knew there was stuff going on with me. And then when I went off on a craft at age 5 and I did it 3 and I was off planet, I knew the dreams that I had someday would be validated. See, unlike you, my parents never spoke to me about anything. I haven't talked to my father, who also was clairvoyant, was part of the military and part of NASA and part of the government with his great grandfather's aeronautical aerospace company that started out in the 1890s in Chicago. And obviously NASA, and they weren't doing that kind of work until in the early 50s. But I grew up with, my dad was on the craft with me at age 5. I remember it like we're sitting and talking to you here. And I went, what the heck is that? And I asked him and my mom about it all through for dozens and dozens of times through my teens. And they would sort of smile and say, you have a great imagination, Mary, you're really creative like everybody else in our family. And they would just dismiss it. So I was lied to basically until about 6 months ago when I knew that I've been supported by my galactic family, the Pleiadians, Arcturians, for a long time. I knew all my dreams of zooming around out in the cosmos under the pyramid since I was a little girl. I thought I was crazy most of my life, but until I talked to my dad 6 months ago, who passed about 8 years ago. I said, Dad, is that really you? Where did we live? I asked him a lot of questions. He's right here, but he's passed about 8 years ago. And so throughout my whole life, of having these experiences, seeing my grandmother, knowing I was different, being sort of a hermit, lost time. I don't remember 40 or 50% of my childhood. I knew I saw Men in Black in our house. I knew we were,
Ooh.
I knew a lot of different things, but nobody ever talked to me because they weren't allowed to, because my father had this huge aeronautical aerospace company and they were doing reentry systems in the 50s and 60s and 70s and up to this, they sold the company in the 90s. But he was sworn to secrecy working, and so was his father. And dad was the only one of three boys that got the wiring that he got from his father and grandfather that goes back evidently like 94 generations, because I've been really researching it a lot in the last few years and really on and off my whole life of why am I so weird? Why do I not feel like I belong here? All those same questions a lot of us have. And why have I moved so many times? And why am I obsessed with art and design and architecture? Which I went to school for all of those because I always wanted to create whole environments. My mom's dad was an architect, so I grew up, and my dad and his father went to Choate, Princeton, Northwestern to be rocket scientists. So did his brothers. Dad was there with Einstein in the 40s, went before the World War II started, and he became a lieutenant in the Navy at Oppenheimer, blah, 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 worked on the Manhattan Project over the decades.
The movie's coming too.
But unbelievable. I had never been acknowledged with all of it. And on mom's deathbed here, a couple blocks from here in Pacific Heights in San Francisco, I said, Mom, are you going to tell me now you're 98? This has been 100 years. And it's been 70 years for me of nobody talking to me. And I said, would you just please tell me, why am I completely nutso, or were these things real? And she went like this and then passed. And my father, so 6 months ago, I asked Dad through my guides and stuff. And I said, Dad, I'm so mad at you. Would you please talk to me? And he said, Mary, I'm so sorry. I was sworn to secrecy by the US government. I was in the Navy. I was sworn to secrecy my whole life. Yes. And I said, well, I've been mad at you for my whole life and now I'm finally getting it. What the heck? And he said, well, you were the only of the three girls that got my wiring, my psychism, my hard work, my love of vastness of the possibilities. You got it like I did. And I wasn't allowed to talk to you or the brothers really, or my father. He has hybrid children. We've now had about 30 conversations about all the things that he'd been off planet his whole life. He took me off. Why he went with me is his father took him, his grandfather took him. So anyway, we go back about, to basically Jesus' time of them, the Pleiades and Arcturians and different beings, Sirians, guiding our family and me. I always felt loved and supported. My whole childhood was not remembering anything, but saying everybody's looking at me. I knew that I was being watched. I know somebody's right here now, but I like it now. But anyway, so I went through 70 years of my life being mad at my parents for not telling me the truth. And my sisters didn't get it. I'd tell them about these stories. Anyway, so we had different backgrounds with that. And I've been going off planet up till a couple of weeks ago, working on subhuman habitats that they have been training me and guiding me and nurturing me with since I was really 5 years old. So, and that's weird to talk about what I talked about last.
People have a hard time with that too.
People really have a hard time with that, but I see it, I get it, I know it. But anyway, so we all have our stories and people can either believe it or they don't. And that's why I'm finally coming out now and just saying it, because I believe it and I want to help other people who, like me, went through that and were denied any conversation. And why I did the book with, asked Barbara Lamb to do the book with me, to help other children, whether they're young or old, to be able to discuss these through a book, maybe positive experiences like I've had, with others who have had contact and never were validated by anyone in their family. And I have been by my galactic family forever, but I've still lived in really mostly hybridization for a long, hybridization, not hybridization. But anyway, I did interiors all over the world for the last 50 years. I've taught on and off planet. I've taught here on Earth. I taught at the Academy of Art College. I've taught children. I've taught off planet a lot. I'm here to serve, and I've always known that I was. I've worked with homeless and vets. I've always been involved in the community. Never cared about money. I grew up with a lot of it, and I'd never fit in that family either. Yeah, it was fun traveling the world. But all I wanted to do was help people feel safe and comfortable in their homes. So when I worked at NASA for many years doing
that.
International Space Station, I wanted to create a safe, de-stressful habitat for the astronauts. So anyway, and then my daughter worked at NASA, so that's 5 generations of our family anyway. But telling the truth is, it's a time now we're all here on the planet to play our part, to play our role, whatever that is, to help heal, whether it's my little dinky part helping ETs and humans off planet and doing I help them when they come here. I'm just here to serve. And I was in programs that I'm glad I can't remember. I've been through a lot of stuff and electric shock and some ritual stuff and my lab stuff a long time ago. And I just don't choose to go there. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to talk about the positive. We are here to help heal ourselves and everyone else along with it, to raise the consciousness and unify as much as we can before we destroy our planet, and allow our children and grandchildren to have a more conscious communication and knowledge of all this beautiful love and support that we've been getting for a long time. So anyway, that's, I don't know if you knew that about me, but that's my little story. But that's why it's so important, and that's why we're sitting here now, because I want to hear other people's stories. And every time we speak, somebody else might go, oh yeah, thank you for sharing. I'm not crazy, or I've been through that. And I have hundreds of hybrid children. I thought I was pregnant my whole life. I didn't understand how I could be because I hadn't done anything till college. But I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds because of my DNA. You have good DNA. I have my own DNA, but I know I've been partly watched because of my own particular DNA, as we all are. We are here to serve and help, and that's what I've done forever, and I won't change. During COVID, all my interior projects shut down, and now I've just dived into this totally to be able to help others or support others in their stories. And if they believe me, great. If they don't, that's fine too. I don't really care anymore, but I want to speak out and help others to speak out and give them an avenue to be able to speak out, as we know there are many now. But it's an exciting time. Things are changing. Everything's sort of crashing and burning and shifting right now. We're giving up, all the old systems, from religion to politics, are crashing and burning, so we can reinvent these new in the age of Aquarius and this beautiful new time that we've been waiting for. The 60s or the beginning, we know some of the pathways along the way that have given us glimpses to the rebellion and evolution and the revolution in this new era that was about to come, that we're in now. So we rise, we help, we soar, we try to be the best we can to support others in their journey.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Not everybody understands what's happening to them, because there's an overall thing that is kind of invisible, and people are trying to tap into it, and it's called by many names. Some people will call it the ascension, is very popular. The earth is ascending. The conservatives will call it a number of things, a time of reckoning, or the collapse of civilization. We're in revelations where the old systems are collapsing, and then there is a new emergence that leads up to, but very potentially, what is a return of the spiritual hierarchy. Some will call that return of the Christ. Some will hail that as the return of the angels, or those that are the architects of the material world here, that have been vested in this for a very, very long time. It even says in things like the lost books of Job, you are descendants, the lost books of Job, which is not included in the standard version or the King James version, but it was curious to me how it said, you are descendants of the house of Pleiades and the house of Sirius, or you're on the house of the seven sisters, which is that area in space of like Thygeta, Maya, Era, Electra, Alcyone, Merope, this area of seven central suns, which actually
that's my family. That's where I come from.
I think comes out of this area and is seated. It's not necessarily a singular pathway as much as it is a joined conglomerate agreement. They're very vested in this experience. They want to see that this platform is not lost. Of course, if you talk like this, are you supposed to be the ambassador or the representative? No, this is shared. This is an idea that's shared by many, many, many scholars that are far more academic, than I am when it comes to trying to understand the paradigm shift, the great paradigm change, the prophecies certainly that have been foretold for thousands of years, and it remains to be seen how this all plays it out, because we're in it moment by moment, rather than giving it us. There's no real complete preview. Like, here's the preview to the movie of Earth, your experience, and here they are on planet Earth, and look, they're all looking up, and here they come, and everything. No, there's no real. There's sort of this. Okay, the Gita says this, and singular sections of the Bible say this. Mystics, shamans, the renunciants, the rishis, will say this, and we're kind of thrown in the midst of this soup, going, well, does anyone have a copyright on the blueprint itself? Even when we released Divine Blueprint, right? It was a very heady title, and I was going along with this with Tony Stubbs, who helped me write the book, because he was a scholar and an academic, and I was writing my first book, and I hired him. And so he loved my ideas. He loved my storytelling, and I was doing lectures, and people were just coming to these lectures. I had no book at all. It was crazy. Robert Perala does a lecture. I'm dying to hear this myself. But then when we started loosely kind of saying that there was sort of a divine blueprint that has been written about, talked about, or trying to enunciate for years, we came out with the book way back in end of 1998, right? I'm 67 right now, and I was younger then, and it just ended up on every Barnes and Noble and Borders in the country, because there wasn't the internet that was giving all the milk away for free then, right? And it was face out in Barnes and Noble and Borders, and I just was dumbstruck, because I really thought, we would do pretty good with this book, but I didn't expect 2 blanket orders for the main 2 chains that people will go buy their books from, right?
So what was it like then? That must have been like a tsunami. Where were you? What was the first bookstore you saw it in? And where were you? I mean, I just want to
I
hear.
saw it. I was living in Campbell, Northern California. I saw it at East West Bookstore in Mountain View, and they had booked a lecture for me, but I knew it was. Then I did see it in Borders, and mostly Barnes and Noble, I think, was the main chain that was in this area. And Tony took the point of a very British, and very scholarly, and self-assurance and confidence like you've not seen before. And he was like, well, I always knew it was going to be a hit. I always knew this book was going to be very, very book, because you can speak to the layman, and
you do. I mean,
he says, I'm not surprised at all. Of course, he helped me write a lot of it. So he'd already had a few hits. He'd written the Ascension Handbook, which was a small, direct book on what they think the Ascension is. And that was a minor bestseller. And so there we ended up as the duo, and he pushed me forward, said, you do the lectures, I will handle getting you in more stores and booking interviews for you. And I learned that. And then when that wave was starting to kind of come down now a little bit, because you're right, it was a tidal wave. I've never thought, my God, really, it was like an album. I'm a musician. It was like an album. We felt that we should follow it up. And so that's when I came up with the idea of creating the Divine Architect, the art of living and beyond. It's kind of shiny there, but
I know, so is mine, but it's
there
a
we
shiny
go.
topic.
That helps right there,
Bookends.
robertperala.com, get it there. I wanted to create kind of a greatest hits package, because I was speaking pretty well. They wanted me to be a host of these various panels, and so I started hosting panels by people with a far greater education than I did. I thought was hilarious because I felt like it was Jerry Lewis goes to Stanford University, Jerry Lewis goes to Harvard or something, that bumbling.
Spirituality for dummies, or like, no,
Yeah, like you
you
these
do,
people have
you have a
PhDs.
clear way. I've heard you speak. You are the voice of the people. I get you.
Oh,
You are such a beautiful, eloquent speaker. You make sense. Most people don't know how to explain it. I don't yet. I stumble, but you are a storyteller. So that's why you have the resonance in your voice, in your energy as a musician. You've got a big heart, you're kind, and it's not about ego. So I can see how it took off with the dynamic duo that you say you had. By the way, what else was out there then? I'm trying to think.
oh,
What
there
else?
was
I mean, Polar catalog, or I mean, what was? I mean, nothing like what you were
there,
doing, right?
there was.
For you.
I was drawing from great people. When we created Divine Architect, we paraphrased some great contributions by John Edward, who was a medium who was talking to people on the other side and reuniting them with lost loved ones.
And Shirley MacLaine.
Shirley
Why
MacLaine
not? Yeah,
certainly was
yeah.
very nice. We paraphrased her work, Tony Robbins for the personal growth stuff, Grunvalo Melchizedek for the esoteric stuff and science. And then there was Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. We wrote to them all and we said, hey, can we write about you? Can we mention what it is you're doing and what your country? Almost everybody, I think but one, wrote back and said, yes, lovely book. Sure. It was good press for them. It was just me sort of paving the way for a little more of their work too, and everybody was winning out of it. And we only really, after the book was released in 2002, we only just released it just a few weeks ago as the spiral bound version that you see now as a workbook with pages in the back that you can write in.
Really helpful. This is going to be big too, because it's so accessible.
Mm.
You can talk about it at the end, but I mean, it makes sense. It really is a handbook that anybody can really access and learn from in a
Tony
simple
deserves a
way.
lot of credit there, by the way, because I was on the road speaking, which is my talent to, like, as you said, my talent was more or less for reaching the everyday person, which that's what the majority of the world is. I would come back and he literally would have 30 pages written and saying, I think you should say it this way. So it was at that point I thought, well, let's be honest with the audience. This is just the same thing as a musician who puts out a really nice solo album on his own with some help. And then the next one is putting an orchestra around and putting more sophistication into it. I never felt shy of telling people that Tony wrote a lot of Divine Architect because I was always the mouthpiece anyway. I was always the one, he's always pushed me forward because he didn't want to travel. And I thought it only matters that the work gets out there. I'm not overly attached to it was my work. So there will be parts when some people really go, this is very funny. This is funny. And there'll be parts where they'll look at this and go, my goodness, Robert turned into quite the academic here, didn't he? I wonder where he got all this intelligence. And it's because I'm the delivery guy in the project, and it's fun, There's nothing like when people open their eyes great big and go, you mean what? How am I going to tell my family this? I dig what you're saying, but I don't know if I can tell all my friends.
Right. Well, I think we should do a book for kids, because I think kids are the next. I mean, to me, kids are the future. And just even Barbara Lamb in my book, we've gotten so much response for parents and kids to talk about some sort of, icky or scary contact, abduction. I mean, some of the things we've been through. It's all about how you present things. And when I used to teach college and I've spoken at NASA and, when I worked at NASA, people just say, oh, thank you for just telling it like it is. And, and your generosity of spirit, honoring him, you did it together. Nothing's new. We know that. I don't know anything. None of us really know anything. We're learning new things every day because everything is changing every day, every second in this accelerated moment we're in. But anyway, what you've done is really tremendous. And that must have been such a rush to go, wow, people are really listening and still are, and still need to hear hear a voice that of reassurance and understanding that is truthful and not based in ego. A lot of people are out there selling themselves now. It's become a whole different, it's competitive now in a way, this
Oh,
spiritual
it is
world.
terribly.
But that's why
Oh,
I'm so attracted to your personality, because you are here to share. And also it's not about you, it's not about us. I mean, it's just getting the tone out so people can really, if they really want to learn, if if something's happened to them that they're confused, or, I mean, I spent my whole life thinking I was completely nuts. I mean, how could people go in and take eggs from my body when I'm 5 on this cold thing, and then I go back, and then I go back, and it was pretty creepy and scary, some of those things, but I got through it. I thought, okay, I know I'm here to help, and I know someday I'll figure it out, and I'm doing exactly what I love and what I've been shown to do and agreed to do. So let's just keep going. Let's keep opening it up, and
sure.
keep taking it to different levels. And if you don't like it, fine, go listen to somebody else. Or it's there's enough out there for everyone to trust or not trust. And the
Yeah.
truth is that everything's happened to everybody. So everybody's stories matter. Everybody's story matter if it comes from the heart and the soul, which you can't make this up, or maybe people do, but who wants to even, how would anybody even go there? But that's why you're such a blessing. And that's why hopefully this will reach another level of the new kids, the new humans, the new kids on the block, and all of us who are elevating, who want to keep learning. We're all growing together, and we're all healing together. So my dad said a couple of weeks ago, he said, Mary, this healing stuff, I lived through World War II. He said, none of this is new. It's all about healing, and it's all about how you present yourself and all the authentic part. He said, I was told to keep my trap shut, and I did. And I said, I'm so proud of you that you did, even though I was mad at you for 72 years. I mean, he said, I had to. Duty, honor, country. And more people believed in themselves and what they were doing, and just put the ego and the money and all that, and just trust what the restrictions. We live in a blueprint. I mean, I'm an architect. I've been living in blueprints my whole life, and it would go through with my psychology and curiosity of religion and all the few things that I knew about, to create happier, healthier environments for people, from NASA to Madison Square Garden to Faneuil Hall, big projects in China, 30,000 acre projects. And I'd always just say, we're just here to create a sense of place for people and culture and everyone, to create more beauty and a center for people to come and learn in, whatever it is, whether it's retail or hotel. I worked on a lot of hospitals.
Get it all here.
It's all the same thing.
Yeah.
It's all the same thing. It's love. And we know that. And that's the new term right now. It's the oneness and the unity that we've all been living and working towards our whole lives, in all different ways. And that's why it's a delight to meet you, and more people that are really here to just spread the love and spread the truth of how we can all
You
rise.
speak so eloquently. Does our audience, do they see you? Are you on a split screen? Do they see you? Our audience?
I've never looked at me. I don't want to see me on.
Why not? This looks great.
They do. Sometimes it's split screen. If they have a presentation, I'm off. I just really wanted to have a platform. And when Conscious Awakening Network asked me to be on it 6 months ago, they said, you just do 3 or 4 interviews a month. And I've done more than anybody. I've done, I think, 50. I think you're my 51st, because when I used to model a long time ago and used to do commercials a long time ago, all I've ever wanted to do, and when I worked at NASA, was the astronauts and people would come up to me at Johnson and out at Moffett Field, near where Campbell, where you grew up. I was down at Moffett Field all those years working on the interiors of the International Space Station, and suggested to Dr. Von Clearwater, who hired me, I said, we've got to do a full-size mock-up, because my dad keeps saying, why the hell did they hire you? And I said, well, Dad, monkeys went up and the dogs went up and they all died. I said, I talked them into spending $100,000 way back then, 25 years ago, to build a full-size mock-up down at Johnson Space Center. So after the couple of years we worked up here out of Moffett, build a team, incredible team, earth ground orientation. How do we create a more habitable, productive space? And of course, I'm Miss Sensory from the art, and I got a BFA, and I got an interior design degree, and that was it. My second year architecture school here, but when NASA hired me, it was like, oh great, I knew I wasn't going to be good at a lot of those engineering things like my dad did at Princeton with in electrical engineering. I knew I wasn't, I didn't have the mindset for that, but I do aesthetics, and that's why the ET like invite me to asteroids off planet, and have been since 10 years old. They've been taking me to Mars and Jupiter and all over, and I've been helping in these create with ET. They call me the master marrier, the scientist or the designer, and we're helping create, spaces like they've watched me do here on Earth. I've been doing for a long time off planet that some people think, it's BS, but as I said, I don't care, because like you, we have big hearts, and we want to spread the love and the joy and do it in a way that's kind and accepting, not negative and scary and, travel channel. They flew me down there. Yeah, it's just, I don't do negative. I never have. And I've been through stuff like we all have, but no way. So anyway, thank you for that. And I've been talking a lot on this, which I wasn't planning on. But this is the kind of stories and kind of like your energy, the beautiful, multidimensional, multifaceted men and women who are here really to just help shift and spread the word, in every little way we can. And it's got to be, and that's why I'm enjoying doing this. And yeah, I love it because it's a platform for me to actually share my story too, that I'm just coming out of the closet, the ET closet with, I say. And because it's the time I grew up with, the nighttime dinner conversations every night with my dad talking about the Russians and and my mom and my sisters were down at the other end of the table. And I said, when's the next launch? And when's this? And what do you mean you work White Sands? Where have you been for 3 months? Or what were you doing at Johnson Space Center? Or, and he'd just say, just working. That's all I got my whole life. And now I know that he went to, with Werner von Braun to Area 51 and talked materials, 2-inch long materials, that he's seen a couple of dead ETs and was working with the materials forever. And that he had this massive company that was, one of his 10 companies was right next to Wright-Patterson since 1952 in Ohio. I never heard of any of those. And then my mom's dad was the architect who did propellers and wood and stuff for World War I and World War II. So there was a lot of huge government, NASA products and stuff for my whole life. And only now do I feel at peace myself, because I knew all those ambassadors or president, people we met everywhere, we traveled all over the world. I'm going, there's something else going on here. So now I've told my kids in their 30s the truth. I said, you can take it or leave it. And Lizzie, my daughter who works at Salesforce, said, Mom, a little too woo-woo for me. But I said, I'm going to keep telling you the truth every day. I was a single parent since you were 7 and 8 years old. And I said, I will tell you the truth every day. You can say yes or no and tune it out. But this is our background. If I leave tomorrow, the planet, and I go to, we never leave, go to the next stage, you will know the truth of what I've been through. And it's been a blast. And I wouldn't have traded a minute. As my dad says to me now 30 times over the last 6 months, he said, I wouldn't have traded one thing except that you, Mary, were the only one. Betty, his mom, his wife of 50 years, and my sisters didn't care about it. But I was the one that was on the phone with the launches, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. I mean, I was the son he never had. And I was thrilled that I sailed with him. I did everything with him when he was around, but he was on a mission himself to help elevate American business and stop with President Truman, 4-point program, all the things that they were doing that was massive that I didn't know anything about. But
I'd love to have met him. Well, like anything aircraft, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
It's kind of, I was raised with that. I really love the whole idea of flight and everything. I know that this summer will be very controversial in the sense that art imitates, I believe very strongly that art imitates life. And yes, you know how like the world will be in a dilemma and there will be a movie about it. Right. It's imitated. It was like, how do they do that? How do they get these two at the same kind of time? And so
because everything's past, present, and future. We know that now, right? We know that. I mean, or think we know that.
Yeah. You see this posturing that's going on with the Russians, and this posturing that's going on with threatening saber rattling over a nuclear device, which is bringing everyone to attention. Another way to warn the Western world that that they want the Ukraine. However, people see that they want the industry of what that country is, the mineral rights, all of the sources and everything. And at the same time, this summer, Christopher Nolan comes out with this film called Oppenheimer, about the life of Robert.
I know. I mean, Dad worked with them. Yep.
Based on the film, or rather based on the book American Prometheus.
Right.
This is a cast of a who's who, including Emily Blunt and Cillian Murphy, Robert Downey Jr. And when I saw the trailer, when I saw some of the reviewers talking about what they anticipate about this film, it's a moral tale. It's really a moral tale of how we perceive safe passage into the future. And there was, well, how could we possibly see safe passage with a nuclear bomb? But it was the idea that, a power greater will stop the other power, in this case, Japan in World War II in the 40s, from continuing to draw down the world's resources and continually to involve us in a war we didn't want to be in. And art imitates life. We're here in the year 2023. Here we have a film that's coming out about that very aspect, about how do we deter, others and put others into a treaty, and then show them that we have the power to stop any aggression. Or my main concern, like everyone, be certainly the chain reaction of that funny little thing that starts, and then it starts in with a time clock chain reaction. So I think we are living probably the most tumultuous time, and when we see the potential of that happening, I have to ask myself, as many have asked, is this a precursor to disclosure? Is it possible that if we were to start a nuclear exchange, would there be actually an interruption? Would there be an intervention of some kind? Is this what the prophets were trying to tell us in the end times of confrontation that caused an emergence of another culture to arrive and level the playing field? You saw this video that's going on this last 2 weeks only, the aerial view of the army base, and you see this sphere coming through the shot, and you see this played out more and more, but certainly in only the last 2 weeks, and wondering what are these spheres that are dropping down into the lower atmosphere, the troposphere and the ionosphere? What are these spheres that keep dropping down in here, seem to exhibit non-aggressive ballistic trajectory? They're non-aggressive targets. They don't appear to be aggressive at all. Certainly the pilots are saying, I don't know what this is, but it's definitely outmaneuvering us. We just can report on this, and the Defense Department and certainly the Pentagon don't want to quite. They're trying to look for that gentle way of how do we, acknowledge this, because the public is looking at YouTubes every day, and we don't look like we're with the program if we don't make in some kind of official announcement that we have this under control. So they do this dance around it. The UAP,
Right.
this term that Hillary Clinton put together, unidentified aerial phenomena. Well, it's a UFO.
Of course it is.
Do we
And
get
they're
real
not
with
going to
this?
come and fix it for us. They're always dropping in, as they did through wars, as they do as they go to military bases and whatever you call it, deactivate stuff. They are just letting us know they are watching and they are supporting us. The craft are all up there, hovering, waiting for us to, keep moving in the right direction. We are supported. They just can't come in and swoop in and help us. It's the drip, drip, drip of disclosure. The thing is, we are the disclosure. Yeah, I don't know why people even wait for any more disclosure. Yes, we will keep getting a little bit more and more, but the resources, as Dad said, it was just the same when he went back to Area 51 6 or 7 more times in 51, 52, 56, 57, 58. It was always about the resources. It is off planet now. It's the next West. We've done, it's the next place for money and greed and power. I mean, we know that, and I mean, that's no surprise. It's the new West. And so anyway, I think we'll just keep waiting for a little more drip, 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 and we will keep talking to everyone we can and just calm people down and go, this is going to be solved. We will wake up. We will try to help solve some of the problems. And after this 26,000 year shift, we are going into a different era, and it will take a while to get there. But we got to get people out
in the
of
meantime,
fear.
there's this other phenomenon that needs to be mentioned here. If I can throw this at you. And that is for years and years and years, there has been what I believe an integration process that's been going on. And this isn't necessarily little green men from outer space as much as it is spirits of certain kind that envelop and come into a human, occupy the field to a degree. And actually the person that's living here may agree to this. We call them walk-ins, people that come in, that exemplify incredible ability. I study human anomalies. Certainly in the early book, Divine Blueprint, I hope I can show this. That shows up. You see,
Yes.
you see this kind of thing that's happening. Now, these kind of hieroglyphs and writings and equations have been coming to people for years and years and years. And you have to ask yourself, when you see this kind of thing, you have to ask yourself, where is this coming from?
Well,
What kind of detail is this? What is going on here,
They're coming from far, far away. All over, they're coming as art has been depicted on cave walls till today, on craft like those. It's communication. Until we wake up and can understand some of this, they're here to help us. Just like humans, there are a small percentage of terrible humans as there are terrible ETs. I'm a believer that we're going to keep getting more information. We are being protected. I really think they're watching. Whoever they are, coming from everywhere I've been.
They can transcend the incredible distance it would take to even get here. We certainly are at the mercy of the idea that they better come with love, because they could get here in the first place.
Well, they do. And if we keep questioning it, they come with love, like most humans. And I don't know anything, but I hear that from when I'm, all the time. Mary, just keep, I trust. We have to trust unless we keep getting out of the whole fear thing. And they're coming with love. Almost beings are here. We want to save Earth. Everybody wants to save Earth, our little blue dot. What do we seek? Everyone's banding together now. I think we just keep our heads up. We stay positive. We hope for the best. We need more heroes. We need more positive energy to just say, yes, we are all banding together in this love fest right now to shift and know that there are a few baddies around on Earth. Let's have another murder, 5 more murders today in Oakland, where we live, everywhere. I mean, school shootings. We are at a traumatic point. We are a depressed world right now, and we are got to get out of fear. And we're just the more we fuel that, the more we stay in it. So I don't even like to go there. We will get out of this. We will help shift a little teeny tiny bit we each do every day, or the little teeny tiny bit I do every day to help shift. We're here, and they want to help us. I mean, we have to, I really believe that. And they tell me that I have a lot of communication with them now, and I'm off planet a lot, which sounds really crazy. I talked about at New Life last week, and I'm starting to talk about more. I trust, I believe. We're here, we're going to make it, but we just got to get everybody else to quit questioning it.
That's right. I agree.
You're here. So
here.
Onward and upward we go. And I love you. I love this conversation. Can I have you back on 3 or 4 more times so we can continue the conversation?
Well, this will be part 1.
All righty, part 1. Now tell people again how they can buy your book. You want to say,
RobertPerala.com. Can't miss it. Very easy. Just order it. Send me an email and say, hey, I want a copy of that book and everything. And very simple. We get it out in 2 days to you. And we're
Perfect.
happy to do that. United Light Publishing. That's my publishing company.
well, cool. Well, maybe next time you can talk more about what's going on in your book too, to inspire people about all the different things you know. Well, thank you so much, Robert. I love you.
Mary?
I thank you for all your wisdom and knowledge and positivity and storytelling. You're a wonderful human being. Thank you so much
How
for
are you?
coming
So,
into my home today.
yep. Blessings. Thanks so much.
All righty. Till we meet again.
And we meet